Hi there, welcome to Kitchenventions. I'm your host Neil Cotter, and today we're partnering with our housemates in Mayfield 17 iHealth to bring you a special episode of Kitchenventions, Healthy Swaps. We're taking our favorite unhealthy dishes voted by all the house and turning them into healthier versions. So we're going to be making for you pizza, mac and cheese, bacon cheeseburgers with french fries, and finally ice cream sandwiches, some of America's favorite unhealthy snacks, and cutting about half the calories, a ton of the fat, and adding a lot of vitamins and other nutrients. So get ready to learn how to take your favorite unhealthy indulgences and turn them into healthy treats.
Hi, I'm Juliana. Today we're going to focus on healthy substitutes for foods. So we're going to make pizza with a whole wheat crust and low-fat cheese and this sauce with a lot of vegetables in it. And the average slice of pizza has about 275 calories in it, and what we're doing today will have about 140 calories in it. So let's get started. Okay, so we have our crust, which is pre-baked, and that's whole wheat. So now we're going to add the sauce. And this is really good because it has a lot of vegetables in it. And we're going to put that on with a spoon and just be really free with the sauce because it's really good for you. Okay, so I'm just going to spread that around a lot. And it smells really good. Look at all those vegetables. So now we're going to add the cheese. And this is low-fat cheese, but we're still going to be a little conservative because that's where most of the fat comes from when you're making your pizza. So that's good. So that's not good. And now, finally, we're going to add our basil. And this is fresh basil leaves, and we're going to make, we're going to cut this by rolling it up and then slicing it so that you'll have kind of like these shreds of basil on it. So we're going to do that like this. Okay, and see how you have these nice shreds of basil to just put right on top? There you go. And we'll do that a couple more times. Fresh basil is really good because it smells really good, number one, and it also adds a lot to the flavor of the pizza. Okay, now that's about good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put this pizza in the oven, preheated to 450 degrees for about 8 to 10 minutes, because that's what it said on the packaging. And you can just put that right on the oven rack. Okay, so now that our pizza's ready, we're going to remove it from the oven. And the cheese is nice and melted. Okay. And then we're just going to put that right up there. And that's perfect. And now the serving size that we're working with is about 1/8. So I'm just going to cut this at approximately 1/8. Okay, and now we're just going to put our slice of pizza on the plate, and it's ready to eat. So look at that. Really delicious.
Alright, so now we're going to take on probably the unhealthiest dish of the day, the bacon cheeseburger with french fries. And normally at most fast food places, that's going to run you about 1,000 calories. We think we can get it down to about 400, so less than half the original. So I'm going to start out making our french fries. I've got a really large potato here. I'm going to just cut it down the middle. And then we're going to make, they're kind of going to resemble chips more than fries, but they're going to have the texture of french fries. But we're going to use a mandolin to cut them really thin. And if you haven't seen this tool before, it's actually one of my favorite cooking tools because it's just so much fun to make thin slices of all different kinds of things. Lots of times when I'm eating an apple, I'll cut them this way because since they are so thin, you just get so much out of it. It feels like you're eating like 2 or 3 apples. So I'm just gonna cut as many of these as will fill up a baking sheet. And as you can see, we don't even need a whole potato because one potato gets you a long way. So I'm gonna take this non-stick cooking spray, which is canola oil, but it's spraying it out in such a widely distributed amount that basically it adds no nutritional value to it. So it's a great way to make our potatoes crispy without adding a lot of fat. And I'm just going to lay these out kind of close together so we maximize the space on our cooking sheet. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to preheat my oven to about 375. That way it'll be hot by the time I'm ready. We actually make these potatoes at home a lot. They're really delicious. I kind of prefer them to French fries because they're really not greasy at all or anything. So you can eat a bunch of them without feeling guilty. There we go. Alright, I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of salt on top, and we're going to use potassium salt, which has a little bit less sodium. It's a mixture of potassium and sodium chloride, and that helps cut it down a little bit, but you still want to use it sparingly because salt in any form has a lot of sodium. So there's some of that, and I just give it another little spray of this canola oil. There we go. So our oven still needs a few minutes until it's ready, but that's fine because we've got a lot of other work to do. So there's a bunch of components that are going to go into our patty, and if I haven't already mentioned it, we're substituting a couple things to turn our bacon cheeseburger into a healthy one. So it's going to be a turkey patty with low-fat cheese and turkey bacon instead of the normal things. And one thing you're going to need for any patty, whether it be beef or turkey, is breadcrumbs. So we found this great way you can make breadcrumbs. You just take an old piece of bread, you can leave it out overnight so it gets dry, and you tear it into a few pieces, toss them in the blender, and then I'm just going to run the blender for a little bit. And I've got breadcrumbs, so really unless you want the seasoned breadcrumbs they sell in the store, you don't really have a need to buy them. You can make them pretty easily. So we've got those all ready to go. And I've got some ground turkey here for our patties. Now ground turkey is a pretty lean meat. I got one with 7% fat. You can get it as low as 1% fat. That tends to get a little dry, so I think it's worth it to take a few extra grams of fat to get a nice moist patty. I'll just take this out, add it to my bowl. There we go. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the breadcrumbs. With this amount of turkey, it's about 1.5 pounds, and you're going to want about 1/8 of a cup of breadcrumbs. That's kind of hard to measure, so I'm just going to sprinkle it in, estimating. We don't have to be too exact with this. Then we're also going to add an egg white, and most of the time when you make hamburgers, you'd add a whole egg, but the white will work just as well to bind it as the whole egg would, and it's not going to have all the cholesterol that the yolk adds. So I didn't break the shell quite as well as I could have, but I think it'll still work to separate it. You can just kind of do it with your fingers too. Alright, so I've got the egg white in my bowl. Throw this away. We're going to add that on in. A little bit of the yolk got in, but it's not a problem. I'm going to wash my hands. Now we're working with poultry, so even though turkey is not known for having salmonella quite as much as chicken is, you're still going to want to make sure you wash your hands very often, just in case. Anytime you're working with raw meat, that's a good idea. Alright, we've got a few more things to add to our patty. So we've already got the breadcrumbs in there. I've chopped up some onions pretty fine, and I'm just going to sprinkle them on in. The extra ones we're going to saute and put on our burger to add a lot more flavor. The interesting thing about ground turkey, this is just a clove of garlic by the way that I've chopped up, is that ground chicken is actually pretty unhealthy. They like to add in the skin and other like connective tissue things that have a lot of fat in them, so that's not really that healthy of a meat, but ground turkey is a lot better for you. And like I said, you can find it almost fat-free, but even with this fat content, it's still pretty healthy. So we've got our onion and garlic in there. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of dried parsley flakes. You can use fresh parsley too, but this will be a little cheaper and it'll probably last you a lot longer. Alright, and then just a little bit more of our potassium salts. And I'm going to add a little bit of pepper. So I think our meat should be plenty seasoned, and the things we've added to it really haven't added much fat or calories. The egg adds a little bit of calories, but the egg white really is the part that's got all the protein, not much of the cholesterol. So it's the good part, and it's going to bind it together really well. Right. So I've just finished mixing up my meat, and now I'm going to put the potatoes in the oven. And I said it's about 15 minutes for the potatoes, but you're really going to want to check on it constantly, especially because our potatoes are so thin, they're pretty likely to burn, so we got to be careful of that. Now I'm going to get out a pan, actually two. We're going to be cooking our turkey patty in one pan, and then making a lot of our toppings in the other one. So I'm going to let those pans heat up, and I've got a whole wheat bun. You can find these pretty easily, and these are going to add a lot of fiber to your turkey patty and to your hamburger overall. And they're also kind of on the smaller side, which is good because we're trying to cut down our serving size a little bit. So I'm just going to put that face down in this pan and let it toast. And really, this is a great way in general, since they don't allow toasters in the dorms here, to toast bread. You just take a pan, you don't really need to put anything in it, and you just put the bread face down in the pan for a few minutes, and it toasts pretty well. Alright, let's check in our buns. Yeah, they've got a nice light toast on them. We don't want them to get too dark, just to have that little crispy feel. So I'm just going to add them to the plate over there and set them aside for a minute. And I think both our pans are pretty hot at this point. So I'm going to spray them both with this nonstick oil. And I'm going to start the onions cooking. Caramelized onions are a great thing to add to hamburgers. You get another vegetable in there, and you get a ton of flavor. And it really brings out the natural sweetness of the onion. We've got those going. I'm going to check on my potatoes real quick. Alright, they just need another minute. Once I get this patty formed, I think they'll be ready to take out. So you're going to take about 1/4 to 1/5 of your meat for the patty. So it's actually a pretty big size patty you get. You don't have to really skimp on that. And you're just going to form it into your typical patty shape. I want to pat it down a few times. And we're just going to place it in our pan right there. I'm going to get a separate spatula out to cook that with. Let's give our onions a little stir. And our potatoes should be done now, so I'm going to take those out. So as you can see, if you want everything done at the same time, it requires quite a bit of multitasking, but I think it's worth it. Saves your time. These look really nice. Actually, our oven's a little uneven, so you can see the front kind of got more dark or brown than the other. So I'm going to put it in facing the other direction for just another minute more. That way we make sure all the potatoes are nice and crispy. And just like normal French fries, those potatoes go great with some ketchup. I think those are about good. I'm going to put them back in their original bowl. And we can use the same pan to cook our turkey bacon, unless you have a problem with it taking on the onion flavor, but I don't. So, just like real bacon, it's going to sizzle really nicely. It's going to get crispy and delicious. Let's check on these potatoes one more time. Alright, they're almost there. So turkey bacon's a great thing. This bacon will only run you about 25 calories a slice, and this is one slice here that I've cut into two because it's not going to fit on our hamburger as one big slice. So it's pretty popular with us back home. My sister eats turkey bacon all the time. We don't even eat normal bacon that much anymore. We got another spatula for our turkey. good flip. Alright. Got it nice and brown on top. And our bacon we're going to flip too. Alright, bacon's almost crispy. And these potatoes are finally done. So, some of them might get a little browner than the others. A couple of these are kind of resembling chips, but that's what we're going for here. It's like halfway between a chip and a French fry. We're just going to take a slice. They come in singles, just like American cheese you'd find. And there's a bunch of varieties of fat-free cheese in your market. It's kind of a whole section in the market we went to. So you should be able to find the cheese that you like in a fat-free variety. So just like you do with a hamburger, I'm going to put that on top there so it gets nice and melted. I think the burger's pretty much there too. I'm going to turn the heat off on that and let it sit for just a minute. So for our bacon, just like normal bacon, it does release a little bit of grease. So we want to dab that off so it stays crispy and doesn't get all soggy and put it on our hamburger. So I'm going to slide this onto the plate. And then we're going to take a paper towel and just dab all that extra liquid off. Alright, it looks nice and crisp. So, I'm going to move our French fries out of the way here. Just stack them over here. And as you can see, our kitchen is not the biggest, so you're really going to try to maximize your space on dishes like this that have a lot of components. But it's time to assemble our hamburger, so I'm going to take the bottom of the bun, put a little bit of our onions on. Then I'm going to add some fresh spinach that I've washed and trimmed, because you really just want the leafy part, you don't want the stems. And even though most burgers typically have lettuce on them, spinach is a pretty good substitute. It's not that lettuce is unhealthy, but spinach has a lot more iron and a lot more vitamins in it than lettuce does. In general, the rule of thumb when looking for green vegetables is the darker green it is, the more vitamins it's going to contain. So spinach is a good choice on that front. So now I've got my cheese is nicely melted over my patty, and I'm going to put it on the sandwich there. And let's just take these two little strips of bacon, put it on top, and then close it up with the bun. And like a normal bacon cheeseburger, this would taste delicious with ketchup and mustard, whatever you like to add to it. And feel free to add those because they don't add very many calories. But this would normally run you about $7.50, and the fries, a normal serving of fries, would be about $2.50. So right now, I'm just going to take a few of these, put it right next to our burger. And these ones got really crispy, so they should be really delicious. Those are my favorite fries, the crispy ones at the bottom of the tray. Alright, and here's our finished plate. So we've taken the bacon cheeseburger and fries, which is normally 1,000 calories, down to 400 calories, and in my opinion we haven't sacrificed any of the flavor.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kathleen, and to go with our healthy food theme, I'm making healthy mac and cheese today. Normal mac and cheese can be actually really unhealthy. It can have up to 400, even 600 calories in a serving. So we're going to do some like simple replacements with different kinds of healthy food, and that'll make it into a much healthier, much more nutrient-based, with much less calories. Our calories count is going to be about 200 calories per serving. Alright, so before we started filming, I made some pasta. We just put an entire box of pasta into the boiling water. This pasta is actually whole grain, so it has more fiber, more protein, more nutrients. Overall, just has more healthier carbs. So we did that. And then next, we took some cauliflower with some onions and steamed it in a pot. We're going to actually make a puree with this now. So I'll go ahead and do that. We're going to take it and put it in our blender. Grab a spoon. Oops. Nice and gently try to get the onions and the cauliflower in. We had already previously chopped up the cauliflower just a little bit just to make it easier to blend, but the blend's going to make it into a nice puree. Alright. Quickly grab the lid I'm going to blend it on the blend setting in the puree. Alright, so now I've blended it a little bit. We're going to add some milk to make it more liquidy and make it blend better. Just like so. I'm going to mix it in a little bit more. Like that, and then we're going to blend it some more. There you go. Alright, so it's looking about good. You want it into a nice puree level. And this is looking good. It's nice and smooth, even consistency, no big bits. So that's good. Alright. And the benefit of the puree is that it adds in the vegetables without actually affecting the texture of the mac and cheese. And it can act as almost like a cheese supplement too, which decreases calories and fat. So we'll pour this puree back in, like so. And now we're going to add our cheese too. So we previously cut up some cheese, and we're going to add it. It's about 1.5 cups of cheese. You're going to add it in here and make it into a nice mixture with this. It'll be a good sauce to pour over the mac and cheese before we bake it. So we're going to put almost all of it in here, but not all. We want to have some to sprinkle on top after we've baked it. And the cheese is actually a fat-free version of cheese, so not only does that decrease fat, but it also decreases calories, which overall helps the health of your dish. I'm just going to mix it in a little bit, like so, and now I'm going to melt it on our pot. So just turn the stove to medium-high, and we'll let that sit for a little bit. Alright, so while I let that melt, I'm going to take this pasta and put it in the bowl or in the pan that we're going to bake it in. So here's our pan. I'm just going to pour it all in here. Like so. Just nice and evenly distribute it. I'll take the spoon and just break up the big clumps so it has a better chance of baking evenly. And we did bake our pasta super, super mushy because it's going to bake about 30 minutes in the oven. So we kept it a little bit hard, but just softened it a little bit just to make sure it would cook all the way through. Alright, and now while that sits, I'm going to take the lid off this and stir it a little bit. See, it's nice and boiling. And it's a really smooth texture too. The cheese is working really well with the cauliflower. You almost can't even tell this cauliflower, which is exactly how you want it. You want it to be as close as possible to normal mac and cheese, but infinitely healthier. So our sauce has become a nice creamy texture, nice and smooth. So we're going to pour it over our pasta in the dish. Just get all the cheese in there. So you want it nice and cheesy. Like so. Looking good. And then we're just going to mix it very gently into our pasta, just to make sure the cheese gets into all the pasta. It's not all just near the top where the edges aren't left alone. So we'll just do that. And this is the perfect amount of cheese. You don't want it too cheesy because then you're having like pasta soup. But you do want it nice and coated. You want it to actually feel like mac and cheese. Alright, so now that it's all mixed in, we're going to take some cheese that we left on the side at first and just sprinkle it over the top. And this will not only add some more cheese, but also allow it to melt a little bit on top. It'll be really tasty and just add it a little bit more of a flair. Make it more like a casserole, almost. Just evenly disperse it across the pasta, like so. And the more cheese, the better, because this is fat-free cheese, so it's basically free, empty taste. Good stuff. So there we go. Cheese is good. Next, we're going to take some breadcrumbs. We took 2 pieces of bread. We took the heels because no one likes to eat those. And we let them sit out for a little bit. And now we're just going to sprinkle it on top to give it a little bit of a crusty flavor. And it can really sink into it during our baking. So just nice and easy. Sprinkle it on top like that. Get it all over. And really give it a nice casserole flair. This is fancy mac and cheese. Fancy yet healthy. Alright, so now we're good. We're going to put it in the oven for about 30 minutes. We preheated to 350 degrees. And we're just going to let it sit in there and bake. Oh, first though, we need to put aluminum foil on it. It's going to allow the heat to really stay inside and really bake and let the cheese melt, and it all turns into a nice, really nice texture, nicely melted concoction. So take about the amount that's required to cover your pan, and just like so, just wrap it around it, make sure the edges are tight. Alright, good. And now we're ready for the oven. So we're just gonna pop this in here, like so, and we'll check it in 30 minutes. Alright, so we're gonna check out our pasta, and bring it out. Okay, yep, it looks good. So we're just gonna bring it up, take the tin foil out. There you go. You can see all the cheese is melted in very nicely. The breadcrumbs have sort of sunken in a little bit. Oh. And the pasta's looking good. So we're going to dish up a serving and show you. So this makes about 6 servings, at all about 200 calories each. So you're saving approximately 200 plus calories for each serving you have. Alright, so we're just going to cut it a little bit. Grab my pot holder really quick. And just grab it from the bottom. And there you go. And serving is actually a little bit bigger. I was a little bit skimpy on my serving size. So you have all that for approximately 200 calories when you change in the both the cauliflower puree and low-fat cheese for the normal cheese you would have. So we're about good. We can add some parsley just to season it up, like so. And you're all good.
Alright, so today I'm going to be making a ice cream sandwich with a blood orange sorbet. So normally this dish would be around the upper 200 to 500 calorie range, but we have managed through a couple of really healthy replacements to get it down to around 150 calories, so it's a lot healthier for you. Now before we begin, we're going to set our oven to preheat at 375. So while that's preheating, we're going to start mixing our ingredients. We're going to begin by taking 1 teaspoon of butter, which is significantly less than you normally get with cookies, and adding it to a 1/4 teaspoon of brown sugar and Splenda, and we're going to cream those together. I think I accidentally said a teaspoon of butter. We are actually using a tablespoon of butter and a 1/4 cup of Splenda and brown sugar to mix this together. Alright, well that's fairly well mixed, so we're going to go ahead and add that to our bowl. And now we're going to take a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, as well as a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and add this to a 1/2 cup of flour and a cup of oats, so that we have all our dry ingredients nice together in one bowl. Mix it quickly. Alright, and to our sugar and butter, we're going to crack 1 egg and add that. We're also going to add 2 tablespoons of applesauce. There's 1. And we're also using unsweetened applesauce, so we don't get that extra sugar in there. And finally, we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Alright, so we're going to mix all these ingredients together. Alright, so now we have all our wet ingredients together. We're going to add our dry ingredients. Mix this all together. Now this recipe should make about a dozen cookies, and it's going to be a lot healthier than a regular kind of super sugary chocolate chip cookie. Alright, and finally to this we're going to add a 1/4 cup of chocolate chips for a little bit extra flavor, and it shouldn't make it too unhealthy. so we got all that mixed together now. So we're going to come over and we're going to take a can of canola spray. And we're just going to lightly spray down our sheet. So this is going to add very little oil. Basically it won't be there, but it's going to make sure that our cookies don't stick to the sheet, which will be very good when we take them out. So we're going to start by putting our cookie dough down on the sheet. I'm going to try and flatten it out because we want our cookies to be as flat as possible for the ice cream sandwich. Alright, so we got our cookie dough all laid out into 12 nice flat cookies, and we're going to go ahead and put it in our oven. And we're going to let this cook for about 9 to 12 minutes so that we get a nice, well-cooked cookie. Alright, so it's been about 9 minutes, and we're taking out our cookies. Oh, they smell really great. Alright, and they don't brown as much as regular cookies do, but they are definitely cooked. And we're going to let them cool a bit while we make our sorbet. Alright, so the great thing about our cookies is that with the oats, that is a very heart-healthy kind of food, so the cookies are actually very healthy. And so while they're continuing cooling, we're going to begin our sorbet. Now we have 2 blood oranges that we've frozen overnight, and we've peeled them and separated them into their little wedges so that they'll blend nicely. And we're going to put that into our blender. And really, you can use any kind of fruit you want with this. The blood oranges are kind of cool. They're a little bit tartar, which is a nice flavor that I like. But you can do this with raspberries, mangoes, really any kind of fruit that you want. Just be sure to freeze it. And we're going to add just a little bit of skim milk. And because this is skim milk, we're actually making a fat-free sorbet, which is kind of nice. So the sorbet itself is very healthy too. And then we're going to add about 2 teaspoons of Splenda, just for 2 tablespoons of Splenda, just so that it gives a little bit of extra sweetness to the tart. Alright, so now that that's all together, we're going to start blending it, and the blending can go a little bit tough since it is so frozen, so you just kind of have to bear with it, and sometimes you have to mix it up. Alright, so that's pretty well blended. We're going to get it out and put it in a bowl here. Now, alright, so we got a really pretty sorbet, and it's this really great red color. That's what's great about the blood red oranges, you get this amazing color. Alright, and finally we're going to choose 2 of our cookies. These 2 look fairly round and they're very well baked. And we're going to take a good amount of our sorbet, make it round, and put the other cookie on top. And there you have a healthy ice cream sandwich with a blood orange sorbet.
That's all for this episode of Kitchenventions, so I hope you've seen how your favorite unhealthy dishes can have healthier substitutes. Keep in mind that portion size is a really big factor in these dishes, so if you make healthy food, it doesn't help to eat a ton of it because you're right back where you started from. You gotta follow the portions that we've laid out for you here. So make sure to join us next month when we'll be making your favorite restaurant dishes at home. See you then.